Hey, hi, what's up? You guys haven't seen it yet. Although the last video I did post was in fact a skit I did about this kind of shit, about this exact shit. And then I did a Chatterbox podcast that same session, that same day that I recorded that as well, that I haven't processed or I guess edited and rendered and posted yet. That was also heavily on this kind of shit. This is how fucking random bullshit this is. And since this is going to come up, it was recorded obviously after I recorded that. And this happened actually, I guess, a few days before, I think maybe a day or two before this, that I recorded that went through the recording session talking about this stuff. And I've mentioned it so many different times before, including on the Twitter that hasn't existed now for a few months, that I had, because it's just mind-warpingly illogical, just what the fuck is happening. This is not just some argument for like left or right, but this is a very leftist or left-wing politics thing. It's a very, very liberal, progressive. They always call it progressive. They call themselves progressive. That's why I say self-proclaimed progressive liberals are all about this shit, right? Black Lives Matter, Antifa, all these groups are like obsessed with this bullshit authoritarian levels of control of speech, control of words you're allowed to use, control of all this, how you're allowed to act, how you're allowed to, like, literally, I mean, I'm surprised they aren't yet trying to police tones of body language. Like, they're just trying to control everything, because if it doesn't, like, you don't align with exactly to a T every fucking thing that they expect of you, well, then you're every pejorative in the book. Racist, chauvinistic, misogynist, probably a rapist, everything else in the book. White privileged. Here, you're just you're supremacist. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake. Because I didn't agree with you. Anyway, all of that said, one of the main points it was talking about in that session, and I constantly made note of, is how this idea of group identity and group collectivism and everybody taking pride in their groups that they're assigned and all this other stupid shit, all this group stuff, right? The problem with the group thing is it's segregating and discriminatory. Or I guess the word would be discriminate. It's very discriminate, and it's very, very heavy on segregation, because what they're actually really doing with the groups, the group identity thing, is they want you to segregate yourself. And in fact, if you don't do it, they will do it for you. Segregate yourself into a specific group or groups if they dictate it's applicable it's okay for you to be able to be a part of that group because you match them enough, whatever. Then you fit that group, and you're not allowed to do anything that they tell you your group's not allowed to do. Because if you do, again, every pejorative in the book, they're going to cancel you, all this other shit, because you're just a terrible human being. It's literally discrimination and segregation is what this whole group identity bullshit is. It's under the guise of inclusivity and social justice and all this other shit and being open-minded. But in reality, it couldn't be fucking more opposite. Any form of segregation is a direct form of discrimination. Any form of racial gatekeeping is a form of segregation, and thus, yes, a harsh form of racism and segregation. That means that all these things that are under the guise of being anti-racist and allies and all this other shit is bullshit. Not only just simply bullshit, it's literally exactly what they say it isn't is exactly what it is. So whatever they tell you it isn't, and it's actually working against, it's actually working exactly right for, perfectly, to a T, and it's going exactly to plan how they want. That said, if you really don't believe it, take a look at this. King County, Washington, home of obviously Seattle and all that stuff, decided in their libraries, amongst actually other places in the county, or other places of the county, I should say, the county government, implemented racial segregation in the name of social justice. And it just gets stupider and stupider as you go on. This is the fucking shit that just blows my fucking mind to pieces, and I do not know how the fuck to process it, because it just is so fucking intensely hypocritical. It's complete polar opposite. It's so fucking dumb. And so many fucking people actually believe this shit and actually think it makes logical sense. It doesn't. Everybody's just willfully desensitizing themselves, numbing themselves, and making themselves fucking blind to reality of just, in facts of just fucking life. Like, they just completely alter everything and then make themselves blind to reality. Separate but equal training sessions for their employees, all in the name of social justice. Of course, you have the picture, which is up here. DEI session, people of color, in this room. DEI session for people who are white, in the other room. Segregation, racially. And, I mean, I don't know what the fuck the Justice Department's gonna do about it, but it's fucking bullshit. A private consulting firm is who they hired, Racial Equity Consultants, which already sounds like a complete guy's fabricated bullshit thing. Like, it's as cliche as it gets. It's literally like cliche, you're in a low-income neighborhood or city, right? You have all the companies in the payday, you have all the payday loans, you have all the different companies with the most cliche, straightforward, and painfully uninventive and clearly reflecting of how poor everybody is in that neighborhoods. Yeah. So it's like that. Racial Equity Consultants is like that. So anyway, so as a part of Racial Segregated Listening Sessions, as a part of the library's ongoing racial justice programs. The consultants begin with an anti-oppression framework and use segregated sessions in order to root out institutional privileges and systemic inequities embedded in our current socioeconomic conditions that influence and affect our institutions. The consultants discovered widespread institutional racism in the library system and dismissed as fired employees who reported not experiencing or witnessing racism while working at King County Library System. In other words, you have one single choice. One choice. You give them the fucking answer they would demand of you, which is that, yes, I've seen so much and experienced so much racism. Oh my god, it's systemic. It's everywhere. Like my brother's case of resident staph in his body. It just ravages. It's everywhere. That's the only answer you can give them. Because otherwise you're going to be fired because, as it says, it means they're likely suffering from the false consciousness of internalized racism. Yeah. So in other words, if you don't answer that you see and experience racism in the King County library system, you're going to get immediately fired because it means you are racist. After all, it's not like, that's 8-year-old's logic on the fucking playground arguing with their best fucking friend. Now is it? No, that's not how that works at all. Never. I mean, fucking come on. Really? It literally is a dictation. That's pure dictation. That's not just authoritarianism, that's literally dictatorship. That's dictatorial of them. To basically be like, I dictate, you have to answer exactly with the words we want to hear. Because if you don't tell us what we want, then that means you're the problem. Because it means you're intensely racist. And you're just not willing to admit it to yourself. Okay? Now let's counsel you as you leave and you lost your job. Like, think about how fucked up that is. And that itself is actually discrimination. It's workplace discrimination, actually. And it's also technically itself, guess what? Prejudiced heavily and actually technically sort of racist. This is just a way to suck up to these ultra extreme left-wing liberal maniacs, which clearly they're actually the opposite of liberal. They're ultra fucking conservative. This is what I said earlier today, and it's so fucking true. My mom even had to laugh at it. And she's definitely more liberally left-leaning, I guess classically. She even had to laugh because she's like, that's really fucking true. Here's how it's described. These people are so far to the left that they're extremely far right. They're so far to the left that they're right-wing. They're so far left, they're right. That's literally the truth of it. They really are so far so severely and extremely to the left side of politics. They've made it all the way back around to the extreme right. And that's exactly what these so-called leftists are, is really extreme right-wing. It's the most type of shit ever, because it's like, God, people are stupid. So, he said that the pictures of the signs were for training sessions. He came from a whistleblower, and that whistleblower reminded him signs on segregated water fountains in the 1950s. And you think about it, it's the exact same shit, because no matter what way you try to rebrand your segregation, it's still fucking prejudiced. It's still fucking racist, and yeah, it's still fucking wrong. It's still fucking fucked up. It's the same, it's literally the same as that. It's not just akin, it's literally exactly the same fucking thing they're doing. It's just with a rebrand. They've, I guess they would try to argue it's been reclaimed. We're reclaiming the term segregation, and we're reclaiming it and reusing it as a different way to bring people and justice together. Right. And so similar sessions, as in segregation, is being held at the Veterans Administration of Puget Sound, VAPS, and the King County Prosecutor's Office. Now that really just sunk in. The prosecutor's office for the fucking county. Think about that. You're talking about the justice system and how unjust the justice system in America is? And you're racially segregating the fucking prosecution's office? The prosecutor's office? For the whole county, the county prosecutor. His entire office, their office is being segregated racially. What? How the fuck is that going to help anything in terms of biases, or let alone stamping out racism biases inside of the justice system? That doesn't fucking mean it. That does not fucking add up. That does not make a fuck bit of sense. The local leadership has launched a series of racially segregated caucuses for individuals who identify as white. Oh, what is with this fucking identity thing? Identify as white. Here's another fucking thing. If you fucking flipped that and you thought about it, people who identify as black, who the fuck are you saying is allowed to identify as black? Who's allowed to identify as white? Who's allowed to identify as Asian? Like, if you think about it, it doesn't make any fucking sense, because it's all fucking subjective. Like, somebody could be only 20% genetically black and they could technically identify as black, or they could be that for literally any of the other cases. It itself is, the premise of that itself is also intensely fucking racist, because then at that point you have to designate, I guess in this case, which is really fucking sketchy and terrifying, is by law, what it means to be white, what it means to be black, what it means to be this, that, the other thing. And thus, how black you have to be and what it means to be black tied together, so that way you can properly identify and define with your true or correct racial group. I just hate this fucking identity obsession too, with this fucking left-wing shit. It's like, what is with the fucking identity shit? It makes, you know, it's like you have inclusivity, right? You have to include everybody. You can't tell people that what they identify as isn't real or doesn't count, because that's not how that works. That's itself so evil, and you deserve to be counseled for it, because you're trying to tell them that what they identify as is wrong. You're terrible. Unless you identify as a conservative and a Trump voter, well, then they aren't included at all. And their inclusivity? No, of course not, because they're just terrible people, and they're obviously racist, sexist, rapists. These leftists are so fucking left. They're extreme right, and it's just killing me inside. Individuals who identify as white, who identify as, that's a good proofreading there, as African American or black. Also, what are the with separating African American and black? Because technically, if they're saying, in other words, well, I identify as African American, not black, because, you know, honestly, the blacks are for the pure Africans. Reversarianism? And then there, maybe. And then the African Americans are for the people who are truly half white. So they're more like say like somewhere between a milk chocolate color and like a coffee with a lot of half and half in it color, you know, but they're still technically identify as blackish or black. Like, because then that means that they're willfully segregating themselves into two separate identities of black, two different forms of blackness. And it's like, you do realize what you're doing. You're literally segregating each other at that point. You're literally black. Like, okay, you appear as brown or tan, but you're black. But no, you now have to be called African American, apparently. It's my interpretation of this, because why is it African American or black? What? Okay, individuals identify as people of color. Asians, you don't exist. Latinos, you don't exist. Oh wait, no, it's not that you don't exist. It's that your races don't matter as much as blacks and whites, apparently. Technically, that's an argument you can make here, because the fact that now they have to just be people of color. If you're Native American, people of color. Not Native American, no. If you're Asian, people of color. You're a person of color. You're not, And notice how they silently separated and pulled out the blacks and African Americans, and just blacks, out of people of color. So there's two different people who they identify the skin color pigment as, and then the rest of them are just thrown into people of color because it's only the blacks that identify and the whites that are important to identify specifically by their titles of their pigment levels. Anyone else, not that important. Washington state government officials, especially in King County and Seattle, have been infusing critical race theory. What the fuck is race theory? Each of their policies and race training and trainings, including in public schools. Is the cure for racism? Is the cure for racism really more racism? Oh, for fuck's sake. It's another thing they're fooling themselves with, is this idea that you can get rid of racism. It's literally impossible. You will never get rid of racism. You'll never get rid of ethnic prejudices. You'll never get rid of supremacies. You'll never get rid of tensions between people groups because of the pride and the arrogance that people have naturally built inside of every single one of us. It's just this most human trait is to be the most arrogant, self-righteous fuck you've ever seen. I mean, Jesus Christ, like, it's literally an inevitability of life as a human being. You will have the dicks. You will have these authoritarians. You will have the dictators. You will have the brutalists. You will have the people who are just constantly hateful and spiteful. It's literally impossible to cure that. Because in order to cure humanity, humanity has to cease existence. That's literally the only way. Just saying. Look at how fucking vague this is. Students furthest from educational justice. What the flying fuck is that supposed to mean? Really? I mean, that ever is a fucking political ploy I've ever seen one. That's classic politician speak. Students furthest from educational justice. Code string is undefined. Error box here. Like, really? Seriously? What? My child is one of the furthest in the system of educational justice. Could you imagine somebody fucking using that phrase in a fucking conversation about their kids with another set of parents? If I was a fucking parent in that situation, I'd be like, what? Duh. You know what? I'm gonna go. You have a good night. I'm sorry. I do not have the capacity to deal with somebody who uses that kind of terminology. You know, and I don't think I ever would. It's just, I'd be like, okay, you're one of those people. I'm okay, goodbye. I'm sorry. You choose who you get to be around. You choose what you put your energy into, and I'm not willing to be around that kind of talk. Like, it just, ugh. Anyway. Achievements of History of African Americans in America for Black History Month of February provided curriculum loaded with links to progressive ideology, including racism against whites, sexual topics, anti-police, glorifying racist politicians, and even recommending anti-Israel books written by known anti-Semites. The social justice reading recommendations outline the complete ideology. Oh, is this actually a legit screen grab? Oh, it is. Oh my God. This is an elementary school. This is a fucking elementary school. An elementary school. It contains fucking kindergarten, for fuck's sake. Think about that. You're 4 through 12. And this is the shit they're giving them. This is the shit they're putting into their head. This is the shit they're trying to enforce. They're trying to perpetuate. What's the R word I'm thinking of? No, I know what it is. It's indoctrination. It's this shit that cults and religions do. That's exactly what they're doing here. They're literally indoctrinating and trying to program these 4 to 12-year-old kids' minds to be exactly as they want them to. They're trying to literally mold them into this like they're fucking putty or clay, into this like what they're probably seeing in their head is like a great, perfect figure, a beautiful statue, you know, to represent that generation for decades to come, centuries even, because they did the right thing. No, this is the fucking wrong thing to do. 4 to 12-year-olds. It's like with the fucking voting shit. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a fucking movement with these idiots to like lower the voting age to 16 and then it'll go to 15. And I don't doubt that then they jumped right down to 12. Like, I'm not fucking kidding you. Because if they're already trying to indoctrinate them with this bullshit, are you kidding me? It's an elementary school. These are 4 to 12-year-olds. Really? It's literal theft of being a fucking kid. This shit you're supposed to do as a kid is fucking discover who the fuck you are. Literally sometimes physically fall flat on your face plant and your failures and learn from it. Grow from it. You know, like, that's just how life works when you're a kid. That's how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to go out there and let them live their fucking lives. Have fun before they're shipped off to be a cog in the fucking industrial system until the day they die. And instead, it's like, no, they shouldn't find their own identity. They should find their own identity based on what I think their own identity is supposed to be. It sounds like fucking awakening JP with JP right now. Like, seriously though, that's 4 to 12-year-old elementary school, and they're indoctrinating them. It's literally shit that religions do, that cults especially love to do, and even more so, it's what fucking dictatorships do. This is exactly literally what Nazi Germany did. Was indoctrination. A cult mentality. Program them to be as you think they should be. Program them to think exactly how you want them to think. Program them to feel and react exactly how you think and believe they should react and feel. And program them to make sure that they're fear-mongered against and that they scare themselves at any time they might question that might not be how it really is. So that they never let go of the programming and indoctrination that they put them through. Because they make them fear that they're going to be bad people if they don't believe in it, if they don't support it, or if they break away. Make them fear that they're going to lose their lives and their chance to ever get a life back or to be able to pay bills again because of the fact you'll counsel them. Like, seriously, this is the shit that they do. And they're doing it to 4 and 12-year-olds. This is the shit that dictatorships have always done throughout world history. This is exactly what dictators do. Indoctrination. It's exactly what cults like Scientology do. Indoctrination. Or cults that claim to be religions, and a lot of religions, like Roman Catholics and Mormons and fucking JWs. JWs, that's Jehovah's Witnesses. Especially Jehovah's Witnesses. I have way too much personal experience with that. It's a fucking cult. Posing as a religion, but it's just like, ugh. Indoctrination, that's exactly what it is. They indoctrinate the parents to make them then feel, and the teachers, to then believe that they need to then continue to indoctrinate their kids and their students nonstop. It's a fucking Truman Show shit. They're trying to make everybody be a cookie cutter. They're trying to make everybody think the same, feel the same, react the same, do the same, believe the same. And it's just like, No. They want to kill individuality for the sake of this weird, fucked up cult-like mentality with this whole group identity shit. Like, I haven't even read this because I'm just like, I don't want to. I don't. Gotta teach that you gotta feel guilty if you're white. By default, you're just already evil, you know. Not only that blacks are superior at this point, because they're basically saying that without saying it. That you should feel inferior and cower in the presence of black people because of the history of what whites have done to them. And therefore you're just a horrible person because you have privilege that they'll never have, and therefore you need to bow down, kiss their ass, and be a doormat for them. Or else you're racist. And of course this stupid shit. Trying to enforce this belief in the literally bullshit, complete lie and fabrication of this concept that there's such thing as gender fluidity, or that there's anything but binary gender. Like, it's literally, you are either a man or a woman, you cannot be both. And that is literally a fucking fact. Like, of all fucking things that science and biology has studied and proven, from the point that they proved it onward, it's very rare that mainstream science actually proves something and then later on it doesn't crack under pressure. It doesn't change because you keep going at it from all different angles and all different belief sets and all different sets of research and all different ideas, and it keeps coming back to square one. It keeps coming back to what you already confirmed was real, which is a fact. Which in this case is there's only binary gender. There's only black and white. There's no such thing as fluidity. There's no such thing as any other gender. And that's it. There's literally only two. You cannot be anything else. And if you are, there's something wrong with your head because you're having a fucking identity crisis. It's one of the rare things that's always withstood the most heavy amount of research and pressure. Throughout history, they repetitively research that because for some reason, people, especially in Western society, for some reason are obsessed with this concept that there shouldn't be just two. For some reason, there has to be more. I guess because of the fact they don't want to actually treat or try to understand and figure out where the source of this identity crisis that these other people are having are. That demand there should be, and there's got to be something else because this is how I really feel. It's like, yeah, well, it's because you're obviously screwed up in the head because of the fact that something's wrong there because you're having clearly a fucking identity crisis, and that's a mental health issue. And it's really a critical one. Like, you need help. But instead of being helped, they're affirming. Coming up with the biggest fucking fraud claim that you can actually be something other than just the two genders. Like, no. Sorry, no. Of course, that means you're transphobic and you're homophobic and all this stuff. So, you're just there to be canceled because you aren't believing in gender fluidity. You say you're proving you're actually talking about scientific facts. Yeah, I guess apparently that makes me a terrible person. Like, I even know somebody who's actually a family member that I really care about, that for some fucked up reason, and it's the weirdest fucking thing because it's like a complete polar opposite of his dad, who's been raised by most of his life, and same with the religion he's been raised in and everything, identifies on the spectrum, the LGBT spectrum. Specifically one of the ones that defies the idea that there's just one or the other gender, and specifically that you cannot be any other gender. So it's like, I mean, it's his fucking choice to believe that he's something different, I guess, but to me he'll always be a he because that's biologically what he is. Therefore he will always be, well, himself in that sense, I guess. But I don't know, man. Again, they're doing this with 4 to 12-year-olds, man. They're doing this in elementary school. I mean, seriously. What the fuck is this world coming to? This is the one that I'm, like, especially agitated by. I really, 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 really fucking hate. Especially considering, again, 4 to 12-year-olds. elementary school. This shit. And it's literally bullshit. It's literally lies. It's literally complete, utter crap. Affinity groups? Affinity groups. Affinity. Really? I have affinity towards donuts. Does that mean I needed a fucking donut affinity group? I have an affinity for gerbils. Does that mean in cats? Does that mean I fucking... What? I have an affinity for other people who love casual gaming. Does that mean I need a specific group and opportunity dedicated to my affinity for them? For donuts? No! What? Anything you have a tendency towards liking or having a bias towards is literally what an affinity is. So if you really drift towards, or you see a pretty flower and you just happen to have to look at it for a while, you want to step up to it and smell it or take a picture of it, that means you have an affinity for flowers. Like, that's literally what the definition of fucking affinity is. White affinity group. Black affinity group. Purple polka dots and green stripe group. Affinity group. I identify as a rancid orange with a cactus addiction sexually. And as for, you know, yeah, it's this fucking shit. This is where we fucking are with this idea of apparently being progressive. This is what it means to be progressive. What? Is the cure for racism really more racist? Obviously not. Is the cure to a raging house fire spraying more fire on the flaming house? Well, of course, actually, yes. That's exactly how you put out a fire in the most efficient manner. You just have to burn everything else down around it while it's burning and burn it more, and then it won't really have a chance to spread into anything because you've already burned literally everything else that's anywhere within like a 60-mile radius. So, congratulations, you stopped the fire. r/technically the truth. It just... But really, this is exactly what's happening. If you racially gatekeep, you yourself are fucking racist as shit. Because of the fact that what you're doing is you're judging somebody by their fucking skin pigment. And if you're actually in depth, then their facial features, maybe their voice, their structure, body structure, maybe if their hair looks drier and more frizzy and curly, wavy, poofy. And you're like, you know, if you don't have what they deem as black enough traits, you're not black enough to ride the right, get the fuck out. Get the fuck away from the gate. Oh, you're not, looking at your skin color, sorry, you're too white to say nigger. You're too white to say nigga. You're too white to rap the full lyrics of rap songs because it happens to contain the word nigga. Whatever it is. You can't, you're not allowed to participate in these activities because you're too white. Or as long as you're not deemed as having enough skin pigment, not black enough, not Asian enough, not white enough, not native enough, not whatever enough, you obviously need to get the fuck away from the gate because you're not enough by their judgment of your race, as in your fucking skin pigment. Literally, that's what racial gatekeepers are charged with doing. Judging people by their skin color, maybe their facial features, whatever, like I said, and judging if they're allowed to come through the gate or not. If they're black enough to go through the gate or not. If they're Asian enough to go through the gate. White enough to go through the gate. Blah, 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 blah. But it's not racist because they told you it wasn't. And if they say it isn't racist, then of course it's impossible for it to be racist. You know, obviously, yes, it's fucking racist as shit. If you gatekeep, you're racist. That's literally how racism fucking works. That's the classical textbook definition and use of racism. That's how classical racism even fucking began. Is this separation, segregation, and this entitlement complex to certain words, certain activities, certain groups, certain events, certain whatever. It literally was due to segregation and racism. Well, I guess racism and segregation are going in order. People, don't allow yourself to be as blind, willfully blind and dumb as all these fuckers are on the left. This extreme left, because obviously, yeah, not everybody on the left is associated with this seeming majority loudmouth group that's just like so far left they're right. Because holy shit, like everything they claim to be liberalistic and progressive is actually ultra fucking authoritarian, making it extensively far right wing, as in extensively conservative and like excessively conservative. They're borderline dictators, and it with so many different things, and it's like they really fucking want to control. I mean, it's already been talked about a lot, but like Chris Pratt, I can't even fucking remember what it was that he supposedly may have said or done that set everybody on the internet, especially Twitter, predictably, that's the SJW fucking hub, off on him. But they were just like cherry picking. They were picking any straw, any cherry they could find. They had to pick it and then say, look, this means you're conservative, and that means because you're also religious, and that means you're super fucking racist, and that means you're super fucking this and that, and you're a terrible person, you need to be counseled. It's like, the fuck? And here's the thing, that's Disney. And not only is it just Disney, which has the most fucking white, quote-unquote woke celebrities per capita of any production company, but on top of that, it's Marvel. They have even more that suck it up to those extreme left wings. And yet, all of those people, almost all of them, immediately went up and stood up for him. And one of the ones who did that, though a little bit after RDJ and Chris Hemsworth and all that, and I think, what's his face? I mean, Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo even quickly was one of the first ones to stand up for him. Like, yeah, he's a really stand-up dude. He's really chill. He's really cool. He's accepting. He's like, he's not a hard line with any of his beliefs. He's like super, he's just himself, you know, he's like he's just down to earth, super funny, great, loving, caring guy. So all of them were now evil. Zoe Saldana, who obviously is a co-star with Chris Pratt on Guardians of the Galaxy. She's a black woman. Not just a black person, a black woman. And because of the fact she stood up for Chris Pratt and protected him and said that he's a really chill, good dude. And this was also after they found and started to cherry pick the fact that, oh, we found out that you followed the Hodge twins, who are conservative African-American guys. Go figure. They're black. And they're conservative? Well, you can probably already see where this is going, because they're fucking hypocrites. They go out for her now because she's protecting Chris Pratt. And they're calling her coon. They're calling her... They're literally... In other words, they're calling her every fucking word. Every fucking black racial slur in the book. These same fucking people that are literally actually using racism to cure racism. Or at least questioning if that should be a thing. The very same people that are using racial segregation to save and cause social justice to be had and racial equity to be formed. The very same people who are anti-racist and who are part of Black Lives Matter and part of all of this great support for the black and African American, there's black community in the United States and around the world. Well, go figure, they're fucking hypocrites. Because not only are they the same people are racial gatekeepers, fucking racist and segregative as shit, but at the same time, go figure. If you're the Hodge twins, or you're Zoe Saldana now, or any other, or Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, if you're any of these black people who dare go against the narrative, go against the norm, and vote for people and or say and believe things that or like certain people, and associate with certain people, that this extreme left, that's supposedly so progressive and inclusive and so anti-racist, doesn't approve of, and you won't back down under their pressure and attempts at getting you to suddenly repent your terrible sins that you've committed because it's not aligned with what they think you should be aligned with, yeah, you're going to get called every fucking racial slur in the book that is specific to black people. Because that's how anti-racist these people are. They're so anti-racist. They're such allies. They're so inclusive. They're so open-minded, you know. They're just such compassionately caring, understanding people that just want the best for the world, you know. They're just so progressive, you know. And they're not hypocrites because they say so, and they scream so, and they demand so. And of course, everything they say is obviously truth and canon. I mean, it's obviously gospel. You should never question the extreme left, because if you do, then you're just every pejorative in the book. Even if you're black and a woman. Sometimes both, sometimes not. Go figure. Just keep that in mind, by the way. The hottest ones know exactly what that's like. They get it all the fucking time. They still get it. They got it since they first started their online presence. You know, showing that they, in fact, were proudly conservative-leaning blacks. Go figure. You know, you protect somebody from the attacks that's white, and you're black and female. Apparently, you get the same treatment. It's ridiculous, but it's commonplace. So just remember that as time wears on. Keep it in mind in the back of your head in storage, so you can keep bringing it out anytime that you might feel susceptible to believing what these extreme leftists keep trying to say, because they're lying to you. Because they themselves are the hypocrites, and they want you to be like them and think like them and believe everything that they do. And if you don't, then of course you're evil and bad, and they're going to peer pressure you as much as they can into making you feel guilty and evil and bad as a terrible person. So you then repent for your sins and believe everything that they do and speak how they do and walk like they do and talk like they do and treat others like they do and react like they do, because you've got to be an emulation of them, or else you're just a terrible person, an average pejorative in the book. 4 to 12-year-olds, I still can't get over that they're doing that, indoctrinating them. Elementary schools. I hope it ends soon and people stop being so fucking stupid and supporting this shit. Anyway, it just goes to show it's actually happening. It's really real, and they're willing to take it as far as they want, which is too far. And it's really fucking sad.